I was talking with a friend the other day about how a male's purpose has changed. He argued because times are more peaceful, many have harder times finding meaning. What is the validity of that statement?
I don't want to compare as between males and females because I think this moment is so distorting of purpose for almost everybody. And yes, there are ways we could focus on a particular problem for males. And I think some of these problems are particular, that there were, honorable ways for many different kinds of men to contribute in the world. And that now that we are suddenly demonizing masculinity itself, that of course anybody whose strengths are in that neighborhood is now suspect, viewed as dangerous. And, let's just be clear about this. It's a dangerous world. Men have done the heavy lifting of protecting their populations and their nations for all of human history. So that was a role somebody could play, and a way that we understood people to be contributing to our collective well-being. And to the extent that this is a world in which that doesn't necessarily add up, yes, it has taken a large category of meaning and essentially almost eliminated it from the map.
Yeah, I concur with that. And I guess I would say we, several months ago now, watched a series of basically war films and war stuff with our boys, starting with the series Band of Brothers, and then we watched 5, 6, 7 really excellent movies, mostly World War II and Vietnam, about World War II and Vietnam. And those, in combination with, you haven't, but I have, in fact, I've read one excerpt here, both of Sebastian Junger's books, he has more than this, but War and Tribe, speak to what war can do for men with regard to finding meaning, and also, community, which is a word that probably very few soldiers use with one another, but that there is certainly, there has always been a role for men in peacetime, but wartime has provided other roads to meaning and productivity, really, as well. Any ideas on why testosterone levels are plummeting in men? Thanks. Was it on our private Q&A that the answer to some similar question ended up being plastics?
Plastics is going to be part of it.
Plastics is going to be a big part of it. Yeah.
But there's lots of stuff tangled up here.
That was specifically, I think, about women, female reproductive success and birth control and stuff. But
right.
Yeah.
But I would say, look, there, every so often you run into a finding that doesn't mean what you think it means, right? Like, cancer rates are going up. Are cancer rates going up because there are more carcinogens? Well, that's one possibility and almost certainly true. It's also true that people are living longer, right? The longer you live, the more likely you'll ultimately get cancer.
It's also true that we've got fancier, more finely honed techniques by which to discover cancers, many of which we never would have seen before, and the people living with them wouldn't have actually had their lives cut short by them because they were so small and insignificant.
Exactly. It's also true that to the extent that you cure other things, people don't die of gangrene anymore. If you cure everything but cancer, then we'll all die of it. So, the fact that it would be 100% doesn't mean anything.
Why are cancer rates going up?
Right.
Because we cured gangrene.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So the point is you got to start thinking in that way in order to know whether testosterone levels plummeting means something. Now, I think there is a result that suggests that testosterone levels are going down. But
it's actually hard for me to fit this question into the rubric that you just described.
Well, what I was going to point out is one reason testosterone levels will go down is men are living longer and they go down with age. Right?
Oh, so if this is just an aggregate across the lifespan measure.
Right.
Okay. And I actually don't know the data. I've heard this thing, as everyone has heard, but I actually have not looked at the data.
Yeah. So there's that.
That's a definite possibility. What if they've done it well, though? What if they've controlled for that and said testosterone for men in their 30s is lower than it was 50 years ago?
And it could be a lot of things. And it's very tempting to think, it's a physiological input. But it's also likely to be true that testosterone levels are responsive to one's own perception of their, place in a hierarchy, or the need for the characteristics that are downstream of testosterone.
There it is.
If the culture is emasculating in a metaphorical sense, then it may be that the body responds to this feeling by, moving away from testosterone. Don't know.
Yeah. And then to get back to the plastics question, there's not too many androgens in the water supply, male steroid hormones, but there are lots of estrogens and estrogen mimics. I wonder, and I actually just do not know the biochemistry well enough to know if this is even plausible, but because, which way is it? Does testosterone aromatize into estrogen, or is it the other way around? I don't even remember which direction that goes. But something, big black
I think
box
you
here.
just said it right, but I don't remember.
I said it both ways, though.
The second one, you said testosterone aromatizes
into estrogen.
Right?
That's
I don't
right.
want to say, but
yeah. Giant biochemical black box here, which, again, if I had time, I can go look at some of the work I did on this in the early 90s. Excuse me. I wonder if one of the effects of having all of these, basically of having our systems flooded with a bunch of exogenous estrogens, might in part be sending the body a message about not needing to produce as much testosterone as well. And that's really imprecise as a prediction, given that I can't even remember the sort of the fundamental endocrinology at the core of it. But I think there might be something there.